Maltipoo or Yorkshire Terrier?
Multi Yorkshire.
That's not an answer.
And he took me to a pho restaurant, but end up he loves pho so much. Had an opportunity to purchase the restaurant that he first took me out on. Right?
What?
Yes.
Welcome to another episode of Behind the Business. And today, our special guest for episode 4 is a very good friend of mine, and her name is Nikki Nguyen, but she spells it. Nikki, how are you doing?
Hi, Max. I'm happy to be here. I'm excited about being the 4th episode series.
All right. Now, Nikki, the reason why I brought you on today is because I know you're a very interesting person with an interesting story, but also you were one of the guests that I thought also might be able to offer some of my listeners and some of the viewers actually some important services later. We like the show to be about 60% about the person and a little bit about 40% about what they do. How's that sound?
That sounds great.
So, Nikki, tell us a little bit about what you do professionally before we get into who you are personally.
Doing real estate for over 20 years is always more fun and people like it more with the people you work with and there's a lot of connections, but not only that, your clients becomes your friend, but sometimes there's struggles. Sometimes there's a lot of work, but you know what? You learn through it. And when you look back, you're like, thank God made it happen.
So you mentioned you've been doing real estate for how many years?
Over 20 years. Can you believe that?
Whoa.
22, 23 years.
What did you say, 2002?
2002.
So how did you get involved in real estate?
How I got involved with real estate, so it's pretty exciting. I was going to college at Sacramento, Sac State. You know, back then when you worked, you were working hourly, like what, $6.25? I was a scanning technician. So that time they had CD-ROM, so you would scan documents, and I got paid $6.25 an hour. And you know what's the funny part is I knew that I was a casino dealer. I'm about 40 minutes away. Actually, I knew some people working there. So I applied for a job and I worked there part-time while I was going to school. So when I was working there, I was only around 19 years old and I was making tips. So everything you made, you get to keep your tips. There are some nights I made $200 a night in tips. Sometimes it's $500 a night.
Well, that sounds great. Sounds to me like you started to develop an appetite for making money.
Well, yeah, because you know what? Instead of working hourly, one day I made my whole week's paycheck. So it really changed my mindset.
So you started to like dealing cards better than you like scanning paperwork?
Yes, blackjack. But you know what? People said, hey, do you know how to win? No. Every time I try to play blackjack, I'm not on the winning side.
Oh, okay, so you can win when you got the dealer's advantage, eh? So you mentioned going to school here in Sacramento. Are you originally from Sacramento or are you a transplant from somewhere else?
I'm a transplant, and some people's like, hey, are you born here? So let me tell you, I was born in Texas. That's funny. I was a Texan. Probably when I was like 5 years old. I was born in Texas, and then my family went to California.
Oh, your first 5 years, you grew up in the Lone Star State.
Lone Star. So when I came to California, I was like, where y'all from? How y'all doing? And then some of the friends we had, they're like, why do you always say y'all? And I did.
Y'all?
Your accent in Texas does say y'all. Then now I have the Valley accent.
I think that was Frank Zappa's daughter who came up with that song about Valley Girl. You had to check it out.
Oh my god!
I'm going to put you on the hot seat.
The hot seat.
We're going to have about 60 seconds or so. I'm going to try to go for about 10 different random questions, which I'm going to make up on the spot as we speak.
Okay.
Nikki, Elk Grove or Sacramento?
Oh, bro.
Okay. Maltipoo or Yorkshire Terrier?
Multi Yorkshire.
That's not an answer.
I love both of them, but we got our first one, so it's a multi-food.
Japanese or Dutch?
I like sushi, so let's go with the Japanese.
Pho or sushi?
Pho, hands down. Stay with my roots, right?
Is it better to give or receive?
Always better to give because at the end you'll receive nothing that you can't even buy.
Sing or dance?
Yeah. I'm not a good singer.
Judge or be judged?
I think judge. Sometimes you gotta judge.
And the last one, Nikki, love or be loved?
Love. Always love. because be loved, the only one who can love you endlessly is God.
So, what on earth brought you to Sacramento from Texas?
Coming from an Asian Vietnamese family, I was raised with four sisters. I'm the youngest. A lot of my family graduated in honors. And, I felt like that was a big expectation that I had to do the same thing. They set the example. I wanted to go to a certain school, but then, you know what? I know my dad's getting old. So I knew my parents was getting older and they needed my help. So I decided to go Sac State. And with that, my major with some friends, I majored in MIS and I didn't know what to major. Okay. I just knew I just had to get some kind of degree. But you know what was the best part? Because my friend was doing it. So we thought it was, okay, I'll do it too. Back then, they're saying MIS was the job force, right?
Your family life and your social life, kind of like getting out of college and as an adult. What's been keeping you around here in Sacramento? What's been keeping you here recently?
What kept me around was, my parents, they don't speak English. So I just felt like I had to be close to them. But not only that, and being in Sacramento, I had created an environment and also meet amazing people and also got involved in church. And that changed my whole life, but also sharing about my faith and being involved in supporting community. And that's what kept me stuck around.
You said going to church. Aren't Vietnamese people supposed to be going to temple?
Yeah, right. I was raised Catholic and, understanding about the Vietnamese culture, a lot of them are Buddhists, right? And we were colonized by the French. So that's why the Catholic came around. My parents were dying for Catholic. Okay. So, but I never understood my faith. But when I found God and when someone was walking me through, I had a relationship with Christ and that totally rocked my world. And that really changed my life.
Well, that sounds pretty interesting. I know the first time we met was actually at an event that you were hosting. I think you might actually put together at your church. Is that right? Were you the organizer?
Yes, I was the organizer and, creating creativity of connection during COVID. When you're a high connector and COVID is trying to stop you, there's many different avenues. We started E2 Biz Connect because the church that we attend right now is called E2. And I was part of that growing of that church, part of the founder of help seeing it grow to about like 200 people to now, 1,200 on a weekly basis. And just so you know, I met my husband. They say, if you want to meet your boo, you go to E2. That's how I met my husband at E2 Church.
E2 Biz Connect, that's where I met you. Oh, look at this. It's this handsome guy right here.
That is my husband. That is our engagement photo right there.
You two look adorable together. Where's that scene?
That is in Monterey. He proposed to me. They called that Lover's Point. And you know what was the funny thing was? We didn't even know until they got this breakfast area, bed and breakfast. It was a community breakfast. So we came and ate there. And then they're like, oh, so I was like, yeah. And he proposed to me the day before my birthday. So we celebrated and they said, yeah, happy birthday. And they're like, I was like, yeah, I got proposed. I'm engaged. And they're like, where did he propose? I said, Lover's Point. And they're like, do you know what does that mean? I'm like, it's the oldest place in Monterey where there's an area where people come to worship. They call it Lover's Point because it's the love of Jesus Christ. Is that crazy? And I had to look that up, and that is true.
What's the story? How did this guy end up stealing your heart?
I was praying. I was waiting for the one that God wanted me to marry. And let me tell you, that is a godly love story. When I went to a church, we only had like 20 people. Then it grew from there. It transitioned. It's split church. So through my time, I attended small church. So when people's like, hey, you don't meet anyone at church, I'm like, if I met someone, I would really know because there's only a few.
You haven't told me very much about this guy. Tell me about the love of your life.
The love of my life, he's half Japanese. His name is Brian.
What's the other half of Brian?
His background is he's half Dutch.
What does this man do for work?
When we first met, he took me out my date to a pho restaurant, which is a very popular Vietnamese dish. And he took me to a pho restaurant and I'm thinking like, this guy's trying to court a Vietnamese girl. He's so smart, but end up he loves pho so much. So we had an opportunity to purchase the restaurant that he first took me out on, right?
What?
Yes, he loved pho so much. Isn't that funny? I thought he was just trying to court me, but that became his favorite restaurant.
How many people have you ever heard about purchasing the restaurant where they had their first date?
I know.
That is a very, very unique story, Nikki.
Unique story. And I knew the owner and he didn't know. I knew the owner 20 years, but he didn't know that. So she told me, like, every time we go eat, she would tell me, she's like, hey, I'm thinking about selling the restaurant, but I'm not going to sell the recipe because she had a secret recipe. And she's like, just so you know, I'm just putting a plug out there if anyone want to purchase. And then when I told my husband, he said, I would love to purchase it. I love that restaurant. And then I asked her, I said, what if I was to buy it? She goes, if you were to buy it, I would teach you. So that all came about. And from there, we learned that, you know, he's a great cook, but managing a restaurant means a lot more. So he said he loves playing poker. So right now he day trades. So he's a day trader in the morning.
I get this right. So you guys love gambling, you love eating, you love the Lord, and you
Yes.
love each other.
Yes, he loves poker. And yes, we love the Lord.
There you go. And that's his name is Brian O'Malley, eh?
Yes, Mr. O'Malley from the Valley. That is our Christmas picture right there. You see that? And our two doggies.
Oh my gosh. Are those poodles?
I got a Multi-Poo and a teacup Yorkie.
A Yorkie and a Multi-Poo. Oh my gosh. Those are two of the best dogs.
Friend ever.
I know you love charities. You love charitable events. I see you do all kinds of charity events, and you've given free tickets to me and other people to attend these events. And I know sometimes they're like 50 or $100. You know, you're very generous that way, and you love to support these charitable events. What's the most important charity that you belong to there? If you had to promote one charity, what would it be?
There's a couple of charity, but if it was one charity, I always like to support our church.
I remember the first time I went to church, they really treated me pretty well. The pastor took time out to talk to me personally. Now it looks like he's got sermons and stuff online too. So if you wanted to get to know a little bit about the church, you can check out Jared and Trin online, eh?
Yes, Pastor Jared and Corinne, definitely. And me being in real estate, we're a part of, you know, ARIA, Asian Real Estate Association of America.
Well, people really respected you from all over the place. How did you get such an enormous respect in the ARIA community?
In the ARIA or in the community is just always do the right thing. And, you know, one thing that we learn from our church and from God is to value people. You know, we all come from different walk of life. And yes, our life is busy. How can you encounter someone and make them feel special, make them feel that they are loved?
Thank you for joining us today. It's
Thank
been an
you.
honor to have you here. And what's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Call me through my Facebook, Instagram me, DM. Best to call me. I would love to connect. And not only that, show you the community. If you want an exciting experience, you know what? I'm the agent that will help you connect with your community, but also get you to sell your house fast for the highest paying dollars too, and the less amount of stress. Thank you so much for doing this video. I appreciate it. Thank you, Max.
See ya.
Bye. Bye.